FBI, DOJ, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, USAID. Trump says, you're fired. Plus Panama, Mexico, and the art of the deal. 2, what role will artificial intelligence play in medicine? Will it, with its incredible calculations, soon be coming up with vaccines, medicines, to literally cure cancer? 3, a mole inside the United States Air Force, appointed to boards overseeing DEI, but all the while thinks it's communist crap, joins us next on The Will Cain Show. It is The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Just make sure you tune in to one of those digital streaming channels. While you're there, hit subscribe, and you can become a member of the militia. Jump into the comment section, hang out with us, become a part of the show. If you're listening on terrestrial radio in some 36 markets across the United States of America, when you're finished and you decide that your commute tomorrow just doesn't fit the same schedule, head over to Apple or Spotify, hit subscribe, and then you can also, at your own schedule, listen to The Will Cain Show. We have a big show for you today, and I'm going to break down some big political news. It's a lot happening as we speak. The television outside of my studios breaking just before I go live today that Mexico has capitulated to Donald Trump, and the tariffs imposed upon Mexico, 25%, have been delayed for 1 month. That and what's going on in Panama, while Donald Trump cleans house in America. We're going to get into all of that in just a moment. But I'd be lying to you. I wouldn't be real if I didn't tell you that my attention for the past 36 hours has been focused on the NBA. I hate the NBA, Will. Nobody watches the NBA. NBA sold out to the CCP. I hear you, okay? I hear you. But I care, and a lot of people care. And today, people care in Dallas. Let's bring in the boys in Florida and New York now to join the conversation. I was sick, as you guys know, late last week. I sound better today, right?
You do.
The voice sounds a little back to normal.
Very good.
I don't think I'm batting 1,000 yet, but I'm back to Hall of Fame numbers. The thing is, I wanted to go to bed early on Saturday night. Went out to dinner. I even left. I said, sweetheart, we're leaving this dinner early. I did not stay for dessert. I'm generally opposed to dessert at restaurants. I'm a 50-50 apps guy. I'm a pretty much never dessert guy.
Overpriced.
At restaurants.
That's why you're in good shape.
I mean, I've done it all, man. Like, okay, you have creme brulee, right? I've had creme brulee. Like, there's no need. I don't have to sit around.
Chocolate lava cake.
The bananas Foster. Yeah, I'm not into it. And I don't know who drinks coffee at 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 at night after dinner, but not this guy. So I tapped out after the entrees. I said, babe, I'm tired. I got to go to bed. I got to recuperate. So we did, which meant I was in bed before 11 p.m. Central Time, because I believe this went down about 11:30 Central Time Saturday night. And one of the most shocking, seriously, this is not hyperbole. So if you don't like the NBA, let me put this into context for you. One of the most shocking trades in sports history, not Dallas history, not NBA history, in sports history took place on Saturday night. And unfortunately for me, it affected my Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks traded generational superstar, if not now, soon to be the face of the league, Luka Doncic, to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis and won first-round pick.
Sorry. That's a bad thing.
Just a bit of more context. When players of this caliber are traded, and they're never traded, essentially the team trading for them is gutted from now into the indefinite future. They give up, they mortgage their entire future to the team that's selling. Like, you get their firstborn son. I'm serious. You get every first-round pick, you get their firstborn son, and we hope you win because you're going to spend the next decade in purgatory. That did not happen. They got Anthony Davis in one first-round pick. But I don't even care, fellas. I don't even care. I just got done taping a episode of The Russillo Show, a Spotify Ringer podcast. Ryan Russillo is an old friend of mine from ESPN, to talk about this. There's no recuperating. There's no explanation. This is an iconic figure. People name their dogs Luka. Okay? There are some stars that transcend even what they do on the court, and that's Luka. It's who he... And I don't know why. I can try to analyze it like, okay, it's because we drafted him when he was, 17, 18 years old. We raised him. He loved Dallas. We loved him back. He carried this franchise to the Western Conference Finals and then to the NBA Finals. I don't want to hear about any of his shortcomings. I don't want to care about his conditioning. Ryan Russillo said it well. He could be smoking a cigarette, bringing up the ball to half court, and I don't care. I don't care. He's Luka Doncic. I don't care if he's out of shape. I don't care if he doesn't play defense. Also, by the way, they were number 3 in defense last year after the trade deadline, so I don't buy it. So, guys, it's a national story. So I know you probably do understand this to some degree. It's really bad in Dallas. Really bad. Like, the backlash, the no one understands why. It literally, I think the best, here's 2 analogies for you, and then I want to hear from you guys. One analogy. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones, firing Tom Landry in 1988, 89. Now, there are old Cowboy fans who have never forgiven Jerry Jones because Tom Landry was an icon. Like, of course, there's highways named after him. He's got his bust up as you go under overpasses. But, I mean, if we're being real, Tom Landry was down for like 2 or 3 years before that. He was old. And Luka's 25 and on the verge of entering his prime. And, by the way, not down because they just went to the Western Conference Finals. So the better analogy, I guess, is it's the Mavericks trading Dirk Nowitzki in 2006. You guys remember they went to the finals, played the Miami Heat. They lost to the Miami Heat. To this day, everyone in Dallas believes that the refs played a gigantic role in awarding Dwayne Wade an absurd number of fouls. Whatever. They lose. If the Mavs had come back and traded Dirk, it wouldn't have mattered if we won 2 titles. They wouldn't be as valuable as the title they won with Dirk in 2011. He is ours. That guy is beloved in Dallas. They have a statue to Dirk. We were 100% on our way to that with Luka. Go ahead, Two-A-Days.
I've been reading. I think it all started after that finals or before the finals. Remember, he got the owner of the Mavs or something like that, took the beer away from him, and then he had that look.
It was Michael Finley.
Yeah. That
was
who
Michael
it was.
Finley,
yeah.
dude.
And that everyone's
you remember Michael Finley, right?
Yep, and that's where it all started.
Michael Finley was all-star.
Yeah.
All-star, Mavericks, I mean, one of the greats in our franchise history, which isn't that illustrious. So, I mean, I don't know if I buy that 2 days. I saw that too.
And then I liked your...
Because, by the way, Luka didn't demand a trade, too.
I know.
He didn't demand a trade.
I know.
This was done to him. He didn't do it to Dallas.
I liked your point you made with Russillo that you said, maybe if it was Giannis, you would accept this. If you're getting...
You like that point?
Yeah. Because I would agree with that. Because then you could kind of understand that trade and you're getting something, eventually you be okay with it.
Well, he asked me, like, okay, they didn't shop it. They just seemed to give him to L.A., which breeds conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
Ratings are down. How do you revive them? Send the league's biggest star to Los Angeles. When I say biggest star, I'm fully aware that LeBron still exists and those types of things, but I think it's pretty clear that Luka is a big part of the future. But Russillo asked me, like, what if you'd done the normal thing and you had shopped him and gotten this great deal? And I was like, no. And all I could come up with, Dan, was I particularly love Giannis, and not as much as Luka, but if you'd done that, maybe I could swallow this pill. Go ahead, James.
Do you think there's something that's going to come out, maybe not in the next month or a couple years from now, that, because right now it's just such a mystery, do you think there's going to be something that Tom Verducci reports and we say, oh, this is why they did that?
Well, the hard thing about that will be we won't know what to trust because there's going to be a lot of CYA going forward because I know a couple of things. Here's what I know. Number one, the conspiracy to move the Mavericks to Las Vegas is not true. That ownership group is actually in the process of moving things to Dallas, not to Las Vegas. On its face, it doesn't make sense. Like, Dallas versus Las Vegas is not a market-to-market comparison, you know? Moving the Raiders from Oakland to Vegas is one thing. Like, Dallas is a gigantic market. Two, the way Texas is going with business, you're not leaving. And they're going to legalize gambling in Texas. So they don't even own casinos in Vegas anymore. They don't have any. So that's not true. I don't think everything was rosy behind the scenes. Like maybe Luka's relationships with everybody weren't as awesome as we want to believe. But again, it's Luka. So like Nico Harrison, the Mavs GM, okay, so what? He seemed to think Luka was an asset, not an icon. And there's a difference, right? There's a big difference between those two. Okay, I have a lot I want to get to today. I want to get into some of this news, though, with USAID and the firings, the cleaning house, and international relations. And we're going to get to this fascinating discussion about AI and medicine. So let's jump right in right now with story number one. All right, Donald Trump has been busy. Donald Trump has been busy over the last weekend. And here's what's been going on. I'm going to run through this with you as quickly as I can. There are FBI firings currently. The current acting director of the FBI does not want to turn over the names of FBI agents who worked on January 6th. Donald Trump and the incoming, you would assume, FBI director and the incoming DOJ want to hold people accountable that they feel like politicized our justice system, okay? That's both at FBI and DOJ. So you are looking at firings taking place as we speak at those institutions. And I say good. It's not retribution. It's not revenge. It's accountability. Okay, you politicize these institutions, then these institutions have no place for your politics. Headline from ABC News. Trump administration fires Consumer Financial Protection Bureau chief. Rohit Chopra is out. And then perhaps most notably, USAID came under the crosshairs of DOGE. Let me give you a little explanation here. Elon Musk has had the following things to say about USAID, who has a budget of $40 million. First, he said it's a criminal organization. Now, this is in response to showing how much USAID sends to various places, all across the globe. Elon Musk also says they put USAID through the wood chipper. Could gone to some great parties, did that instead. He also said that USAID is a psyop. It was a radical left political policy psyop. I saw some reference to the USAID's budget of $38 billion. Half went to overhead. Okay. So like paying salaries, throwing parties, doing that. Guys like Bill Kristol, the neocon, who said he tweeted this, he'd rather have the deep state than the Trump state. Yeah, well, he is one of the big beneficiaries of getting money from USAID. And the left is losing their mind about it. Here's AOC. She said it's a 5-alarm fire cutting USAID. The people elected Donald Trump to be president, not Elon Musk. Having unelected billionaire with his own foreign debts and motives, raiding U.S. classified information is a grave threat to national security. This should not be a partisan issue. It's because this came under DOGE's guidance. By the way, since that time, some of the coders working for Elon Musk have been doxxed. It's like 6 dudes, all like in their early 20s. Wired magazine did it, put out their names, put out everything. The ones that are fine-toothed comb going through the government. And here's Senator Jeff Merkley saying this. He says, a president is not a king. Trump cannot eliminate USAID with the stroke of a pen. Not only is it illegal, it's a gift to our adversaries. This is the beginning, I would think. This is a start. If you want radical change, if you want to change in your government, if you think it's inefficient, you think if it spends too much money, if you think there's too many federal employees, don't lose your mind about every single one of these stories because it should be different again tomorrow. Last week, it's everybody returned to work. Last week, it was hiring freezes. This week, it's specific institutions. And it's also taking place on the world stage. Panama has taken back its memorandum of agreement with China to continue to develop the Panama Canal. part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. That was just announced by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, China, I believe, still manages many of the ports in Panama, the traffic flow through the canal. So there's still work to be done there. Mexico just announced they're sending 10,000 Mexican federales to the border to intercept illegal immigrants and fentanyl flow into America, resulting in Trump pausing the 25% tariffs on Mexico for 1 month. He's also now talking about levying tariffs on the EU. What is clear? So whatever you see in market turmoil, whatever you worry about inflation, you don't know what tomorrow brings. People talked about strategic unpredictability when it comes to Donald Trump, when it comes to foreign policy and war. Well, I think there's something that you're going to have to expect when it comes to economies as well. And that may create, he has said there might be short-term pain, short-term uncertainty. But it's also clear what's happening here is he is abiding by essentially his lifelong North Star, the art of the deal. Oh, Mexico came back to the table. They're going to do something better that we want. We carry a big stick. What happens if we swing it? Maybe we get this country internally and on the world stage back to serving Americans first. All right, let's look into what AI will do to medicine. I saw this conversation on Fox and Friends just a few weeks ago. I was kind of blown away by it. You know, I have my own concerns like everybody else about the increasing medical vaccination of society, but AI threatens to make this entirely different. We'll debate whether it's good or bad, but we need to know, like, oh my gosh, could this literally cure cancer? That's coming up on the Will Cain Show. Hey, have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and I was absolutely shocked. He's in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. And what's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife started doing it, and she says she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner. She has energy all day. So Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/CAIN or by clicking in the link below this video in the text description. It's going to change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Cain. And click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old, and yet he has more energy than me. I'm sure that's a fact. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below. chuckdefense.com/CAIN. AI, medicine, cure for cancer, next on The Will Cain Show. Could AI change medicine to the point where we find vaccines, quote-unquote vaccines, for cancer? It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe on YouTube, then you're a member of our community, a.k.a. the Willisha. And you jump into the comments section, we bring you on the show. Hit subscribe on Spotify or Apple and hang out with us whenever and however you like. So, like I said, I was watching Fox and Friends. And I texted the EP, who's my friend. I said, that was a really good segment. I can't remember who did it. Could have been Brian Kilmeade. Although most of the time when Brian does something, it's, you're like, it was okay. No, I don't know who it was. It was really good. I'm joking about Brian because the guest was Dr. Angelos Sturgio. And apparently he knows my friend, the executive producer of Fox and Friends. I said, I liked it. I want to do that conversation a little deeper. So Dr. Angelo joins me now on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Doc?
Hey, well, great thanks for having me.
I don't even know where to go, honestly. So I'm watching you that morning, and you're talking about, AI, and what do I know about AI? I guess we're running computations, we're running simulations, we're running through every scenario. We can, virtually try every recipe to come up with what? Cures to what? What are we talking about revolutionary here with AI in medicine?
Yeah, I think firstly, the convergence of AI and genomics really will revolutionize medicine and research as we know it. And the truth of the matter is, there are other countries doing this, and we should not be shy of really leading those efforts. And one of the things that AI will allow us to do, as we have seen already, it will allow us to expedite two things. One, to get new drugs to the market, and secondly, to really personalize treatments and vaccine for patients. So it's really
okay. Let's go with number one first, though. Okay, you said before we get to the personalization side, the first side expedites medicines. Here's why I keep struggling, Doc, over the word vaccine. Are we talking about vaccines? What are we talking about? I know you said genomics. What are we talking about expediting? With what kind of medical solution is AI helping us to arrive at? Because see, I'm gonna tell you, I'm already, and maybe a lot of people listening are too, I'm already biased, okay, in a direction of we are too medicinally focused and not health focused enough. So in other words, preventative, make America healthy again, eat the right foods, exercise, take care of yourself. We treat everything through a pill or a shot. And so I can only get so excited about the idea that AI is pushing us towards better shots. Is that what we're talking about here? Like, what is AI doing?
Yeah, let me tell you a couple of facts first, if I may will. Firstly, the U.S. healthcare costs in 23 alone was $4.8 trillion. It's going to go to about $6.8 trillion by 2030. So we know that a big portion of that is because of what you just said. It's because of patients and underlying chronic illnesses. What AI will allow us, as we have seen, is you have a patient, and coming back to the cancer vaccine piece, we're talking about therapeutic cancer vaccines. They're not preventative. So I'll give you an example of leukemia. So we have developed a cancer vaccine for leukemia where basically, as in many types of cancers, you can get patients into remission. The problem is, unfortunately, the vast majority of patients will relapse at some point. So what we have done is we identify what we call epitopes. So think of it like this. You have the cancerous cell. And the cancer cells, they're quite smart. They have basically, I'll use the example of a lock. And now you have thousands of keys that you have to try and basically see which key will fit into that lock so you can kill the cancerous cells. So over time, it's taken painstakingly about 15 years to do that type of work, costs about $2 billion, and only about 10% of the drugs that we have discovered actually make it to the market. So this will basically radically change that, A, to do it quicker, B, cheaper, and thirdly, really with a higher chance of success. And again, we're talking about, in our case for leukemia, it's a peptide vaccine, not an mRNA vaccine. It's a therapeutic vaccine. It's an immunotherapy. So we're basically boosting the immunotherapy. We're providing your immune system a picture of what those cancerous cells look like. So if and when they come back, now your immune body, those great, what we call cytotoxic cells and memory helper cells, they're out and they can go and kill the cancer cells. So you can stay in prolonged remission, which then prolongs survival.
I heard you say this, and your motivation may simply be to be accurate, but I'm curious why you made the point of distinguishing a peptide vaccine from an mRNA vaccine. Because I'm curious, did you do that because, A, you just want accuracy, but B, the skepticism right now publicly around mRNA?
I think it's twofold. One is for accuracy, absolutely, and I think, it's very important, especially for the viewers, to understand what we're doing. Secondly, the mRNA component, it's just a different type of, if you will, technology that is available to treat certain types of, infectious diseases as well as cancers. We work in the space of peptide vaccines. We've done the work with Memorial Sloan Kettering, where again, in leukemia, we're in the cusp, God willing, of final data where we have shown previously, Will, that half of our patients who received our treatment, our immunotherapeutic, stayed in survival for more than 5 years, which is considered a cure. Importantly, with minimal side effects. And what those are is just a redness at site of injection and really a clean safety profile. So I think if you put all that together, it is revolutionary, but what AI, again, can do and will allow us to do is to expedite, to really create safe and efficacious treatments for a particular patient based on his or her genomic profile, which is really unprecedented. The issue, though, to be very clear, this will not replace human capital. This is just complementary to what we do to expedite and, again, to be more precise. But the human intuition that a physician has to really understand what the data ultimately means and go and do the real-world evidence will not be able to forego it, and we shouldn't. First and foremost, it's safety. That's, to me, it's the paramount piece. We have to make sure whatever we administer and give to patients is indeed safe.
So let me see if I understand. We'll stay with because it sounds like it's also your area of expertise. Let's stay with your example of leukemia. So I'm diagnosed with leukemia, right? Normally, I have a treatment schedule, I would assume, laid out for me that includes chemotherapy and radiation, I would assume. And you're telling me, even having gone through all that, my rate of remission is high, or it'll go into remission, but its recurrence rate is high, right? So in steps this new stage that you're talking about, AI helping develop, which I guess we'll call it a vaccine, peptide vaccine, that I receive at some point after my initial treatment. Is that when you get it? How does it play a role in your treatment schedule? Do you still go through the initial radiation and chemotherapy to eradicate, sort of like mass assault the cancer? Or does this one shot, is it the tailored version and you just take that? Like, tell me how it fits in the treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's why I want to make sure we define it correctly, that we're talking about therapeutic vaccines. Right now, we're talking about therapeutics vaccines, AI. We're not there yet to create preventative cancer vaccines. In the case of leukemia, if you're lucky, the ideal course of treatment should be for someone to get a bone marrow transplant, because that really is the best treatment schedule. Unfortunately, for many reasons, the vast majority of patients are not eligible to do that. So they undergo a chemotherapy regimen to get them into a remission with all the good and bad side effects. So they are in remission, and that's when we come in, because we have targeted what we call a Wilms tumor 1 target, which is highly prevalent. More than 97% of patients express this Wilms tumor 1 antigen, and we administer subcutaneously our therapeutic therapy, our therapeutic vaccine, so which again stimulates now the immune system. If and when those cancer cells come back, your immune system now can fight it off, and you prolong survival. It's really, and what I need to reiterate here is not only the efficacy piece, but also the fact that it's safe. We're talking a lot, Will, about vaccines, but this can also shape the actual treatment paradigm as we move forward. And that's why I'm saying AI is important. Over the next decade, we will see a big revolution in the space. We'll be able to basically potentially reprogram some of those T cells, those white blood cells that are out to kill cancer cells. If they don't work well, to reshape them and reprogram them so they can really go into that lock, if you will, and kill the cancer cells. We're just at the infancy, if you will. We had started, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center here in New York, with this AI application to identify, if you will, those exact locks and keys, how to penetrate and kill the cancer cells. But there's really a lot that we will do in cancer, but it also brings ethical questions. I mean, I think, and part of the reason why I brought up mRNA before and why AI may be a little bit sort of in this questionable bucket is we need a large set of data, patient data ideally. And the question becomes, how we're going to regulate it. No one wants to have their genomic profile out in the public or anywhere else that will be misused. We have to make sure there is no algorithm bias, that there's a vast and a big portion of patients across ethnicities that will be embraced. And who owns the data ultimately? How can we share the data? So there's going to be a lot of regulatory and ethical pieces that have to come into play. And I think we need to get people comfortable, and we can only do that by being transparent, and we have to be very careful what we say. I do not believe that we'll be able in 24 or 48 hours to turn around and give somebody a magic drug. Maybe in 20 plus years, but I heard that, in 48 hours we may be able to do that. It's going to take more time. AI will allow us, though, to really patient-specifically tailor a treatment that will very likely work for the patient, again, to be safe and efficacious.
I want to go into two areas now. I set it aside, but I'm coming back to it now, even though you've invoked it a couple of times, the personalization element. So what AI is going to allow you to do, because you're sequencing all these genomic combinations, right? And that's why you need the data, the large data sets. And so you start seeing all of our different genetic profiles, mine from yours from, young James in the producer's control room there next to you. And maybe what works for me doesn't work for you, doesn't work for James on cancer treatment, right? But now AI is helping you figure out, I like your analogy of the key in the lock. Which key fits your lock, your cancer? So what you end up with is what? Tailored medicine to your genetic profile and your particular form of the disease. So what I take doesn't end up being the same thing you take for cancer.
That's accurate. And again, it's going to help us twofold, if you will. One is that it's not going to be a drug that we just go out to the market with and give to everyone, because to your point, we are different. There's heterogeneity. So we have to tailor medicine. And I think what that will also in turn help is my first comment that I made. Healthcare costs are going to be about $6.8 trillion in 2030. Unless we become smart and we can really create more personalized treatments, not just in cancer, but in other indications, it's going to be very difficult to really be sustainable. And secondly, to also compete with other countries. I mean, the U.S. Has been, will be, the number one country in being innovative and forward-thinking, and we should not let that chance go. We have to be cautious, as I mentioned, both from regulatory and ethical considerations. But I think it's just something that we need to embrace.
I want to go back to the ethical and regulatory considerations in just a moment. Here's my question. If you get to a place, aided by AI, that you end up with personalized medicines, and again, therapeutic to your point, we're talking about after you get cancer, what do you take that helps you overcome cancer, right? If you're getting to a place where you have a personalized answer to that, it doesn't seem to me, and who am I? I'm just some dude on radio and TV and on digital and YouTube and Fox News Channel, but just some dude. What's the big step from a personalized therapeutic to a personalized preventative? It seems like once my genomic profile is set, and now you have a medicine tied to my genetic profile, that doesn't seem like a huge leap to go, okay, you know what else AI has done? We're able to pre-screen. Will, you are clearly, I think we already do this, you carry this gene. You have a high prevalence for this form of cancer. It'll probably hit you within the next 25 years. Here's this, and we can say that we dramatically have lowered your propensity to get whatever it may be, X, Y, Z, form of cancer.
So in everything that you said, I 100% agree. The only thing that I disagree with you is I know that you're a Mavs fan, I'm a Bucks fan, but so you're absolutely correct.
Well, maybe I'm a Bucks fan now. I might be now. I don't know what I am anymore.
So the key thing is you're absolutely correct. AI will allow us to be able, and we're already doing that. There are different types of even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, where we can predict early on what the onset may be and when it's going to kick in. And also types of cancer. So that's going to be the next step. And again, I'll use that 10-year time horizon. We will be there right now at this therapeutic cancer vaccines. I firmly do believe that here over the next 10-some years, we will be able to, again, once we know that somebody is at risk to developing X type of cancer, for us to then tailor it and specifically get a therapeutic in place for that patient to potentially prevent it. And I think that's really the ultimate goal of research and of medicine. And that's
right.
And AI, I want folks to understand. You need really large data sets. And ideally, across many, many patients. And we as humans are just not able to very quickly review everything and assess everything. So AI will really allow us to get all that data, to crunch it in a way for us then to understand, okay, this drug works for Angelos, this works for Will, this works for James.
So talk to me for a minute about the ethical concerns. You know, by my nature, you know, somewhat conservative, skeptical of big power, even corporate, not just government. You know, there's a lot of things that go, oh, you know, I don't want anybody with all this. But there's also, like, this is just me talking out loud about me, but I'm just not the guy that worries that much about my information on the internet. I don't know. Or the Chinese collecting my information on TikTok. I just don't. Because, like, what are they going to do with it? Oh, they know some things that I like to look at? I mean, is that going to prevent me from running for president? Are they going to have, like, some info on me? And, you know, I don't know. I can't tell if they've done it yet that I know of. But my point is, I don't know the risk of my genetic information being made available for testing through an AI algorithm to come up with, you know, answers for everyone when it comes to cancer. I just don't know it, Doc. Like what's the big deal if my genetic profile is public?
I think the issue, Will, is, and I think you will agree, being out public is not the issue. It's if you can then go back and trace back and say, you know, this is Will's or Angelo's genomic profile. Why? It's, you know, it can have underlying issues both from, you know, with healthcare, insurance plans. You know, suddenly you're providing and disclosing data that otherwise they may not be accessible, and they can already sort of plan. Okay, these are the percent and the chance of that patient getting XY disease, and secondly. I mean, it is regulated already. You know, we have HIPAA, and when we do that type of work, it is highly regulated. But that data set in the wrong hands, you know, could be detrimental. And, you know, you use China as an example. I wouldn't necessarily want Chinese companies and the government there to have access and know exactly because the genetic profile is different based on ethnicities, among others, to really be out there. I think it has to be highly regulated. It's, I think, one of the key things that this administration has to look at, among other things. But we need to assure that the people understand, and again, we can only do that by being transparent, that we have thought through this very carefully from a regulatory perspective, how we're going to use it, who's going to use it, from an ethical perspective, that data, patient data, names cannot be traced back as to who it belongs to. And then thirdly, who is going to utilize all this information, all this data set? I think that's the key piece. We need to make sure that U.S. researchers, U.S. companies will use it wisely and creatively to really support, first and foremost, people in need here.
Okay, I want to know your opinion on something because of my general curiosity, but also I think it's a great symbolic issue of what's going on in healthcare. So I want to talk about Ozempic, but for that matter, any of the GLP-1s, right? Wegovy, Mounjaro. So I looked it up this morning. I was talking with a bunch of buddies of mine, okay? 12% of the U.S. adult population has taken a GLP-1. 6% is actively using. That's really high, by the way. Those numbers are high for a pretty new drug outside of its use for diabetes, right? And, you know, some of the guys I was with this morning, doctor, were telling me it's not just about weight loss. Like, it suppresses all kinds of urges. So doctors are also using it to help with nicotine addiction. Even I heard gambling addiction, which is super wild because it's like, what kind of like impulse control and urge control is it exercising within the brain? But my point is this. On one hand, we have Make America Healthy Again. Let's get rid of chronic disease. Let's eat right. Let's exercise. On the other hand, we have this medicinal remedy to the problems of neglecting to do part A, right? Which is, for lack of a better word, we'll just say Ozempic because it's like Coca-Cola, right? But there's a couple Cokes now. And so what I'm asking you is, how do you see like the role of this type of drug in general entering the market? And RFK was fascinating on this and how much it could end up costing if it's covered by Medicare, you know, and so forth. It could bankrupt us. Like, we have been down the path, full head of steam. This is our solution. What's the next drug, right? But how do we balance that against this other side, which I think you buy into as well? Like, no, we got to get on the chronic disease path here of preventative, healthy lifestyles.
Yeah, listen, I agree. Ozempic has become really sort of this new slogan, not just here in the U.S., but in Europe and everywhere else. The problem is used outside of diabetes, which was really developed, and there's now a couple of drugs specifically approved by the FDA for weight loss. It's very expensive. Someone who buys it off label has to pay. It's about $1,000 in Europe. By the way, if you I was talking to some friends in Greece that they pay about 200 or 300 euros versus about, I think, 1,100 or something here.
It's $59 a month in Germany. It's, like you said, it's close to $1,500 a month in America. That in and of itself, by the way, is worthy of its own deep dive as to why. But
yeah, I mean, that piece in itself is,
ahead.
I mean, that has to do something, around, among others, with centralized pricing negotiations, that in Europe they take a complete different approach versus in the U.S. In the U.S. we pay typically about 3 times more on drugs than in Europe, which is utterly insane. And also some of the patent and biosimilar regulations are different. But notwithstanding that, coming back to your question, we need to really get patients, if you will, incentivized to live healthier. I'm not a fan of going just to prescription, to just use a magic drug to lose weight. But I do think that in order also to bring the healthcare costs down, if we can incentivize patients, if you are healthy, you watch out for your weight, for other illnesses, there should be some benefit, not just in the form of health insurance, but potentially something different, from tax credits to whatever else may work. I mean, I'd sent some RFK Jr.'s team some of my thoughts around overall drug approval and the safety parameter and other things. I do think it's very important to get patients, obviously, to live healthier so we can bring down the healthcare cost. I'm going to say it again, close to $5 trillion, only 10% of that is prescription drugs. 90% are other things. The U.S. is the first country, number one country in running all sorts of diagnostics that in other countries you don't do. So we spend more on different diagnostics, but sometimes the outcome is as good as another country. So we really have to change the mentality, I think, the view of people as it relates really to healthy lifestyle.
Okay, this may take us back to cancer, but what you described sounds absolutely revolutionary. Like, when my son was just shy of his 3rd birthday, he was burned. He pulled a crock pot off a kitchen counter. He had 3rd degree. They don't really do degrees anymore, but 3rd degree burns over 7% of his body, mostly his arm and chest. And we were in the hospital for a month doing burn treatment. Burn treatment was horrific, like maybe worse than the initial injury, and it goes on and on and on for weeks. But burn treatment, from what I've led to believe and understand, has gotten way better in the last 10 years, like way better. It's not that torturous, trying to find your way to healthy skin thing. My point is, I don't know whether or not to call that revolutionary, but medicine can change fast. What you're describing for cancer kind of sounds revolutionary, and I want to ask you, like, over what kind of time frame? Are you talking about within 10 years, 25 years? The idea of cancer being a death sentence is gone, and we look back on it and go, do you realize that my grandparents, cancer absolutely wiped them out? Is it even treatment is revolutionized, where it's like chemotherapy is like this thing like burn treatment? It's terrible, it's awful, we don't have to do it anymore. Just describe for me the time frame and the revolution.
Well, firstly, I hope and pray that your son is doing well, and I'm really sorry to hear that.
He's great. Thank you for that. It was 14 years ago.
Great.
He's great. He's a beautiful 17-year-old boy now, and he's got scars, and chicks dig scars.
I'm really glad he's doing well. So, to your question,
Thank you.
As I mentioned, we spent about $2 billion or so, and it takes about 15 years to get the drug approved, if you're lucky to get it approved. And I think with AI, and not just AI, I think there's much more to it. We as Selassie at in our group, our company, we're in the cusp, as I mentioned, for leukemia vaccine, God willing, this year. But I really think over the next 10 years, what you will see, and I don't want to restrict it only on cancer, but in other diseases,
Right.
be it in cardiovascular, be it in neurological, we will be able, over the next 10 years, diseases that we could not treat today, we will be able to treat them. I have absolutely no doubt about it. Death sentences, where patients, may have a median survival of only a few months, we'll be able to push that out to years and ultimately for something like this to become a chronic disease. It's difficult to put a time horizon on it. I do believe that over the next 10 years, starting this year already with ours, that God willing, that we will be able to really revolutionize, change the medical landscape. And I want to make clear, it has to come from the U.S. That's why this whole AI is just a little tool, or is an important tool, in what we're doing to get patients healthy and to be able to treat those patients. But we really, all of us, need to embrace it and be smart about it, so other people will not, have some be leaping ahead of us. I think, to me, that's fundamentally most important thing.
All right, Dr. Angelos Sturgio. It was fascinating. I thought it would be, and I'm glad we did this. It was fascinating. I appreciate that. Stay in touch with us here on the Will Cain Show. Anything you see come up in health and medicine, we want to hear about it. We want to know. Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks, Will. Thank you.
Okay. A mole for years inside the United States Air Force, appointed to boards overseeing, involved in debates over DEI. Why? Because he was black. But all the while, he never believed any of it. That is coming up next on The Will Cain Show. You're young, Will, says Chris Hart on YouTube. First rule of war is getting to know everything about your enemies. As God the Father said, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Over on YouTube, Sweet Girl 777, sup, Sweet Girl, said, because you cannot figure out what the Chinese can do with your data from your phone doesn't mean it's not a risk to you and others. I get that. There's a lot of people pointing that out to me because I said, I just don't personally feel the risk of everybody knowing stuff. Like Julie Brandt over on YouTube says, privacy is privacy, all caps. Why must every detail of me and my body be made public with no less than 5 question marks, Julie? Look, here's the thing. As a maxim, as a thing to say, privacy is privacy. I get it. I'm with you. But I want to know what's the risk. Forgive me. That curiosity is just part of who I am. I want to know. And then, by the way, what you do is you do measure the risk against the benefit. And Julie, you do it as well. You're commenting on YouTube. Even if that's a fake name you've given me, there's an IP address associated with your YouTube account. You've traded away some privacy that's readily accessible because you find some value, thank you, in watching The Will Cain Show, and commenting and subscribing to at least some things on YouTube. We've all done the cost-benefit analysis. We don't have to explain that. Every single one of us have. You have traded privacy for convenience. We're all debating it on a regular basis. It's what we do. We debate it every day, all day. You are debating, whether it's conscious or not, how much privacy should I trade away for this convenience? When you go to the corner market in 1870 to buy some sugar, the man sees your face. You are suddenly less private. You traded away that anonymity for some sugar. We're only doing that times 1,000. Well, really probably times millions now. So the question is, how much privacy when it comes to our genomics do we trade away for the benefit of miracle drugs that are tailored to our own personal genetic profile? And RFK said this last week. It's pretty fascinating. He said, a healthy man has 1,000 dreams. A sick man has 1. My suspicion is once you're that person, if you had a personalized drug, you'd trade a lot of privacy away. Because you know what? Private death, less valuable than public life if you value survival. That existential debate's going on in Dallas right now. Here's the December 25th, 2024 game. I was lucky enough to go. There it is. Great seats. I know. Big baller. And there he was, Luka, just a few feet away. Little did I know that's the last game of Luka in Dallas. He limped off with a calf injury, never to be seen again in a Dallas Maverick uniform. Kyrie there with him, right there. Once upon a time. He was a mole as he was on a DEI board inside the Air Force. Last week, he was on the Will Cain Show on the Fox News Channel, and he's with us now today for a little more time, a little more relaxed atmosphere. It's Brigadier General Christopher Walker joining us now. General?
How do you do? Happy Monday.
How do you do?
I don't know if there's
Yes.
such a thing as a happy Monday, but I'm going to wish it to you anyway.
Thank you so much. You know, we began this conversation. We were interrupted by I believe that day it was either the President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense who was
It was SecDef.
booking. It was the SecDef booking himself on the Will Cain Show with about 7 minutes notice.
Hey, look,
So our conversation
I
was-
realize where I stand on the food chain, and so that's more important.
Well, he rudely interrupted our conversation, but we wanted to make sure we had this more depth because it is fascinating. So give us the background. You are a brigadier general in the Air Force. You are
I retired.
right. And what I mean by you are, I mean, at the time this all goes down, and maybe you weren't yet a brigadier general. Maybe you were, I don't know what your rank was at this time.
I was a brigadier general.
Okay, and you're asked to come in on some DEI stuff. Now, you told me last week it wasn't at the beginning because they thought you were a devotee, a disciple. But once you were in, they assumed you were because you're black.
Correct. And quite honestly, everybody who knows me, there are thousands of people who know me, know I'm a conservative, but none of them ever asked. Some of them did try to friend me on Facebook, and I refused. And I said, hey, we're not going to do that. That's unprofessional, because then they would really know. And then, I just kept it cool. But there are even times, quite honestly, when some of the people in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion would be purely political and badmouth Trump, badmouth all sorts of conservatives and things like that. And then I would say, hey, let's look at the facts. And I would give data. And they would assume that because I was a general and an officer, I was trying to be non-political. But they thought that, but secretly he thinks otherwise. And they were still wrong.
Okay.
Holy smokes. It astounds me, the minds of the left. But hey, that's all right. We'll use that to defeat them.
Okay, so you end up on these boards when it comes to DEI stuff, right? And you talk about their assumptions. So once you're in the room, they're looking at you, literally just looking at you, right? Nothing deeper. And it's because you're black. They're looking at you and going, safe space. He's with us. And what? Had their open conversations?
Oh, yes. And I would, again, I would just listen and sometimes stay silent because, and they would assume, okay, he's being professional, but I can still tell him everything I want to say. And I would just listen and go, okay. And,
what would they say? Give me some examples. What would they talk about?
Well, okay. There was a lot of bad mouthing Trump. There was a lot of bad mouthing the GOP. There was a lot of bad mouthing white males. And then sometimes I'd say, okay, let me ask you this. What if all of the white males decided to leave the military? Don't you think we would be forced to learn Mandarin at gunpoint? But they would not even listen to that. And I said, and I tried to gently prod them in the way of, hey, how about we have some unity here? And they didn't want to hear it. There were even times where I said, okay, here's something we can do. If the diversity is that important, let's do it like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, professional soccer. Let's start inspiring the youth in every corner of the United States and the world, because we have Americans living all over the world, and inspire them in aviation, cyber, and whatever else we might need it to be, and then have them in competitions, and then the ones who rise to the top, we start mentoring them and trying to pluck them for the military. All of them don't have to go in the military. Quite honestly, this is something that will benefit the United States as a whole, whether they're in the military or civilian. But those that we bring in the military, we will have first pick of the Michael Jordans, the David Big Papi Ortizes, and the Tom Brady's. But they didn't want to hear that. They want to do it, wait till they're 18, 22 and use propaganda. And I go, okay, this is a losing battle. So I bit my lip and I just reported the crazy.
Well, okay. What was the point of this DEI board inside the Air Force? You were a brigadier general,
it's not a board, but it's an office.
DEI office.
They called it the Secretary of the Air Force Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Right.
And,
okay. Did it report to the Secretary of the Air Force?
They reported directly to the Secretary of the Air Force. And so my boss at the time was a senior executive service person. And then her deputy was an 06. And that gave the opportunity for, let's just say, without mentioning names, because I didn't ask them if they'd like their names to be said, but there were people from the Trump administration who were still in charge or high up then, and I got brought in because they knew me. We had relationships, and they knew that I could be perhaps a speed break or a speed bump for the crazy.
Okay, and so this is the Secretary of the Air Force Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And
Office of Diversity.
Maybe I got the name.
Yes.
Office. I was going to say maybe I got the name a little off, but we get the gist. And it's tasked with what, General? Like, what is its goal, and what was it trying to accomplish?
It was trying to accomplish DEI for both the Air Force and the Space Force, which would both fall under the Department of the Air Force. And quite honestly, again, I want to reiterate, diversity is not a bad thing. It's how you get there that could be a bad thing. And they started doing it the CCP way. And that just, I can't go with that. There are better ways to do it. If we do it like professional sports, all will be well because we'll get the best.
Right. I want to get into the tactics in just a second. When you said something, because you said diversity is a good thing. And to some extent, I think we all agree with that. But, the SecDef says this now, the new SecDef. He says, it's often said diversity is our strength. He said, that is completely backwards. Unity is our strength.
Unity is our strength. Quite honestly, if we have a lot of diversity, but they're all fighting, then we're going to lose. China is going to win. Unity is our strength. I'm telling you, the whole purpose of basic training and all of the services is to bring unity. The whole purpose of really, really difficult training, for instance, the special forces and such, that is to bring unity, because all of these people coming from Brooklyn, New Orleans, Brownsville, Texas, San Francisco, all of that goes to the wayside because they are all now brothers and sisters. That's the purpose of all of this. But these people. And
by the way, that's like professional sports. That's like professional sports.
Holy smokes! Do you see any professional sports players saying, "I'm not going to play for this coach because he's white"? No. This is a total farce. But they got a lot of the stupid people in the United States going along with it.
Okay, okay. Back to the tactics. So they are looking to achieve equity, inclusion. What types of ideas were they? They didn't like your idea, so instead, you mentioned like Chinese style propaganda. What were they doing to force equity, inclusion into the Air Force?
So throughout a lot of the service academies and throughout lower ranking service members, they'd have different kinds of training that would hint and sometimes even be blatant, saying that white people are the enemy. And I go, holy smokes, how's that going to work? But then consider this. There is a course that the Georgetown University, holy smokes, it's supposed to be a Catholic university, but it's gone off the rails. But they convinced the Air Force to pay good money for a course called the Executive Course for Managing Inclusion, something like that. And it was targeted toward senior members of the Air Force. So generals and senior executive service. And in that course, we had two Georgetown University professors telling us that if we meet a new person, if we don't ask their pronouns, we're wrong. And in my mind, I go, wait a minute, no sane person does that. What is this? But they were trying to convince us that if we didn't do that, we were wrong, and we should be ashamed of ourselves, and we should go self-flagellate. And then they also tried to say that no people of color can be racist because they are the oppressed, and white people are the oppressors, and they are they are higher on the totem pole. So these lower people cannot be racist. And I was like, and then I have one of my friends, and and she won't mind me saying her name. She's a general as well, and she's going to be retiring in the spring. But Tracy Smith, she started challenging these ideas, and then they started pillorying her and try to make her feel like she was dirt. After that class, that day, she calls me and says, did I look like an a-hole? And I said, no, Tracy. They were gaslighting you. They were trying to make you look like, wait, stand strong. We're not going to let this stand.
So you're taking all these courses. The courses are saying stuff like white people are the problem, white people are bad. You can't be racist if you're a minority. You got to use the pronouns. A lot of corporations are doing this. It's disconcerting that the United States military adopted it, so passionately or eagerly. But did you see it manifest
based on industry? They said, "Oh, the corporations are doing it, so it must work." Holy smokes!
Did you see?
When is the last time we
play
won
out?
a war following corporations?
Did you see it play out though beyond this training? Like, would it play a role in professional advancement? Would it play a role in unit selection?
Yes. So let's talk about. I'm not afraid to name names because I'll tell her to her face. So the S3, the deputy chief of space operations for operations, Deanna Burt, we call her call sign Spice. She actually went on a speech in uniform, and you look it up on YouTube, saying that the laws in Texas against having minors be mutilated for transgender surgery is going to affect readiness. And I said, she said that, wait a minute, she was in uniform and she said that in a speech to the American public? They were emboldened by all of this BS. And many others were as well. You saw Millie say, "Oh, well, I want to learn about white rage." Holy smokes! They were all emboldened by the politics on this, and not by the war-fighting mentality.
When did all this start, in your recollection?
It really accelerated in 2021.
Okay, but was
2020, well, actually, let me go back. 2020. So after George Floyd's death, then we had a lot of folks who were willing to come out and be really political in uniform. We actually had the Air Force Academy and the football team and their coach put out a video praising BLM, not knowing what BLM really stands for and all of their tenets. Well, for instance, that they are avowed Marxists and they are against the nuclear family and such. They just fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And then the white officers had, I'm going to say it, they just had this white guilt and said, okay, I got to go along with it. So that I could,
Right.
they were virtue signaling. And I said, holy smokes, stand strong and pay attention to what it takes to win wars. Let the politicians do that, but they didn't want to do that. Everyone felt comfortable, and the snowball got bigger as it rolled downhill.
I'm going somewhere with this as our conclusion, but so that office, and I've already forgotten the name of it, but the Secretary's office.
Office of
DEI.
Diversity and Inclusion, the Secretary of the Air Force,
Yeah.
Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Did it exist before 2020? Did that office get created?
No,
Because
it was formed in January of 2021.
Okay, that's interesting because a lot of this, as you point out, like BLM, that's an older organization. BLM dates, it was playing a role publicly. I believe probably hit my radar around Michael Brown. So what year was that?
Yes,
that was
yes.
that was probably was that like 13? Let's call it.
I'm not going to put out a date on that, but yeah, that was around the Michael Brown hands up, don't shoot BS.
Right. So the reason I ask you like how long this has been around is what I'm curious about is how hard is it to cut out? Something that's been around longer is going to be harder to cut out. If it's only 4 years old, that gives me a little bit more hope. But as the SecDef has said, and I know him, of course, and he's like, there are targeted replacements you have to do at the top, and that incentive structure will roll downhill. And of course, he did just a complete, the president with an EO, a complete whack of DEI within the military, right? But and Hegseth has said we're not going to let it be rebranded and buried in some other departments or broken up and scattered like cancer into smaller departments. But from your perspective of someone who was in those rooms, how hard will it be to excise? So
previous, I don't want to be bad on previous GOP administrations, but they didn't know how to handle things like this. The current administration, President Trump, does. He's a New Yorker, and he knows, all right, get rid of them, fire a lot of people, make it known. And then the thing is going to happen, and the thing I see happening all the time, because I go up to New York City, Jamaica, Queens, pretty often to take care of my 92-year-old mother. And I wear shirts like saying there are only two genders, XX or XY, or Ultra MAGA, fully expecting some sort of conflict. And I got people in that black neighborhood coming up, yeah. And so I said, okay, I know the tide is changing. People are not being fooled anymore. And so people across the government, across industry, across corporations are going to be very readily talking against it and coming out and speaking on what's on their mind, because they were scared before. Now they're not going to be scared anymore. And so the remnants that remain in government, they're going to be in hiding, and they'll be in hiding, but most people in the government know who those people are. And they're going to say, hey, if you don't like it, resign, retire, get out. This is the way it's going to be. We're not letting that happen again.
So you're hopeful that it can be cut out.
Believe
no matter how
me, I know
deeply
it will
buried
be.
it is. Okay. Oh, this is good. I'm glad we had a chance to talk more in depth, General. By the way, I appreciate your service. Appreciate your honesty. Appreciate the line that you held as well. And sharing all this with us today here on the Will Cain Show. Lieutenant Brigadier General Christopher Walker, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. There he goes. All right. That's two fascinating conversations we've had today. I don't think it's over. I think if you tune over to the dial in about a little less than 3 hours, we'd love for you to hang out on the Fox News channel as well for the TV edition of The Will Cain Show. Until then, I will see you again, same time, same place, right here tomorrow.